We love your commentary here and these questions. I do want to answer one because I think this is important. It's TJ Trex was asking, do we feel, I'm looking forward because you've asked a lot here, TJ, where are you? Do we feel like Pinoe is better than the other forwards in play? Listen, when you look across the board, all of these strikers are great, right? And they bring a little something different. But what Megan does bring that's different is, and somebody else said it down the line, which I really agree with, which is like consistency in service, set pieces, and somebody that can step up. I mean, we saw it in the Challenge Cup semifinal against Washington, somebody that's subbed on in like extra time just to take a penalty kick, right? Because you know that she's in the most intense moments, she'll be able to put those away, right? And execute for you. And I think that is actually really important when you start to think about like makeup of teams and like, what does that look like? And we've talked a lot about experience and youth on this podcast as well, in terms of finding that balance for Vlatko. But I also think you have to like look at who's available and who's similar and what types of strikers you want for your team, and then have the best mixes possible, because you're going to face a plethora of different strikers, or excuse me, teams and defenses in the World Cup and in qualifiers. So you have to be able to figure out, okay, who do you need in what games? What's the execution going to look like? And so that's why I'm still with some of these players like a Megan Rapinoe. Yeah, we can talk about ages all we want, right? I mean, we talk about you being old, we talk about you being too young, and there's a sweet spot. I mean, who really cares? Like, if you're 40 and you can be like, let's look at Ibrahimovic, right? He still performs. His role looks very different, but I mean, no one's over here worrying so much about his age, right? He just gets it done, and there we are. If the players don't have legs, then great. Yes, you cannot perform. We'll know that when the time comes, right? If somebody is falling down and they can't go, great. Here we are. But I mean, until that happens, then like everyone's in contention that has played in this level, in my opinion, because like they bring a different role, right? So here we are.
Completely
Carly Lloyd. I like it, Steve.
Exactly, Steve. I'm TJ Trex. Thanks for that question. We have another one from TJ Trex in the chat that we also got on Twitter. This is a smooth transition to our question segment of this episode, because if you subscribe to us on YouTube, you can drop your questions in the chat, and on Twitter at Attacking Third. Reply to our mailbag tweets. And we'll answer your questions. We get so many and we want to talk about them. So TJ Trex asked this one in the chat, and we also got one from the unathletic non-professional athlete. The unathletic non-professional athlete said, right now my front line is Pugh, Macario, and Press. But the way Morgan is playing, she's into. How would you use Morgan and in what ways will that change how you use Macario? Macario in compact games, Morgan in open games, Morgan off the bench. The struggle is real. And TJ Trex essentially alluded to the same thing. I'd like to see if Kat and Alex Morgan can play well together. What are your thoughts on these two in that central striker role?
Well, I don't think we're going to see them as a central striker role unless Kat's playing more of the 10, because right now, Vlatko Ananasi has not given us any indication that he is switching this formation, right? There might be slight movements around in terms of like a bit more to holding in the midfield, depending on what he decides. But at this point in time, there's been no indication of any of that, right? So given what we know, then I don't see those two playing together in some sort of like number 9 position. The one thing I will say, though, is I personally like Alex Morgan better as the 9. And in that central role, we've seen her play that with San Diego. She seems to get the most goals in that position. And then also, or at least when she can start central and then peel out, and not vice versa, right? When she starts wider and then has to choose when she's going to come in central. So, and then with the national teams, she has consistently more than not played in that role when there's been a 3 front. And so I will say the one thing, though, that's interesting is that because she's played in that wide area, though, with San Diego, Vlatko could or could not be looking at her for that position as well. I just think right now she is performing. I don't think there's any question like he's not cute. I think he'll absolutely bring her in. That was the whole point, right? If you're informed, she is no doubt one of the best informed players in the NWSL, leading the league in goal scoring. Then okay, you bring her in. I don't think that's even in question. It's just, okay, who's the pairing again? What does that look like? And what we do know right now is Kat Macario has been performing in club and country like wonderfully, right? Playing the best soccer in that number 9 position, essentially. So right now, I don't see Kat coming out of that position. Now, if you're going to move things around a bit, then fine, we'll see. But like right now, I see Kat Macario playing that 9, and then you might bring somebody like Alex Morgan off the bench or player in the wide position, right? So
yeah. Is there any difference in between the styles of Macario versus Morgan in the type of opponents that the U.S. would be going up against, whether it's a really open game or a fast-paced game versus a really tight, compact game that they're trying to look and break down? Do you see pros and cons in Macario or Morgan when you look at the technical, tactical side of it?
Yeah, I ultimately think that Kat is going to be better in that position as a 9 with like a team that's going to sit back a bit more, right? I think Kat is going to, and I think overall, I think Kat could potentially be better at this point in time right now, regardless of who's playing, because she can play if it's in transition, if there's space in behind, she has enough pace, enough speed, quickness to be able to get in behind and play off of a Pugh or whoever is up there with her, regardless. And then she also has the ability, though, to understand spacing and then peel off the back line, allow for the midfielders to get through, right? Whereas, my opinion, Alex is a bit more of a post-up player in that position. And there's a bit more fluidity when there's tighter space in Kat's game in that case. But I mean, we've seen Alex, when there's space, be able to open things up. She can score goals like nobody else, right? So I mean, it just depends. It depends on who you're playing with, who's underneath her in the midfield as well.
Two pretty good choices that Vlatko has to choose from between those two players.